a large crowd gathered to shake hands with McKinley. In attendance at the front of the line was a Detroit-born anarchist, Leon Czolgosz. His right hand was wrapped with a handkerchief to make it appear as if he were injured. When face to face with the president, he extended his left hand while firing 2 rapid shots from a .32 caliber revolver, concealed under the handkerchief. McKinley was still conscious and pleaded that the assault on Czolgosz stop. The president also asked that care be taken when informing his chronically ill wife of the event. McKinley was taken to a local hospital where he underwent surgery for his gunshot wounds. It at first appeared that he would recover, but complications set in and the president died on September 14, 1901.
And now for the San Francisco earthquake.
This was the most devastating natural disaster of the 20th century. At 5:12 a.m., people all across San Francisco Bay felt a foreshock, and before they could react, 25 seconds later, the actual earthquake happened, and it shook all of San Francisco for a whole minute. The quake was actually felt all the way in South Oregon and in parts of central Nevada. It was measured at a magnitude of 8.3 on the modern Richter scale. An eyewitness accounts that it felt as if the earth was slipping gently away from under her feet. Fences were demolished, trees were uprooted, roads, streams, and conduits were dislocated, and the greatest destruction came from the fires that were ignited by the quake. They were blazing in all directions, and the fires alone destroyed 28,000 buildings in a 520-block radius. For many weeks after the earthquake, there was a water shortage because of all the pipelines that had broken and burst during the earthquake. There was also power outages all across San Francisco because of power lines being down. In the end, the tragic event took the lives of more than 3,000 people, and over 250,000 were left homeless. Property damage in that 1906 amounted to $24 million, but today that would be close to $350 million worth of property damage. It was a really devastating event, but it really shaped San Francisco.
Yet another disaster. It's ridiculous.
Hi, I'm Barbara Walters again, and now I want to talk to you about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. It was 1911 on March 25th in New York City at a famous factory called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Everybody was gathering their things, getting ready to go, and then someone started yelling, "Fire! Fire!" Down below on the street, people that were walking, they could see like smoke was bellowing from the 8th floor where the fire started, and they watched as like bolts of clothing went flying out of the windows and hit the pavement. But when people started to move closer to the building to see what was happening, they realized those weren't bolts of clothing. They were people jumping for their lives. So inside on the 8th floor, the fire was getting bigger and bigger because it was feeding off all the cotton fabric, and it had now like reached, like it was over people on the ceiling, and it was spreading to the 9th floor. Male tailors that were on the 8th floor, they found these buckets of water available, and they tried their hardest to douse the fire. So they made 15 to 20 trips with those elevators up and back, but they only brought about 15 people down to the street level, and people would walk out and their clothing was smoldering and like melting off of their bodies, and people that were running down the stairs, like you could see their clothes literally like singeing off of them, and they were just like running out completely naked. And while like all this was going on, Engine Company 33 came to the rescue, but that just added to the horror, because as they start to try and help with the fire, they realize their ladder only goes to the 7th floor and maybe the 6th floor, but their hose only reaches to the 6th floor, so that doesn't help like at all. So girls just started jumping for their lives. And some girls would like aim for the top of the ladder, but they would completely miss and they would dive to their deaths. And people were jumping like 5 at a time, holding hands, and some people described seeing girls jump out of the building with their hair on fire, and then they would just hit the pavement. Some people even landed on streetlights. Firemen finally got rid of the fire, and they were walking through the building and they found 19 bodies melted against the locked door on the 8th floor. And later, after the fire, Mr. Harris, the owner of the business, was put into trial because he was charged with locking the doors to all the floors on his way down the building. And so he technically got charged with the murder of 19 girls because he locked them in the 8th floor. Commissioner Drummond said he was walking around and they were walking in the basement of the building, and they found girls hanging on the pipes above that had jumped, and they fell into the basement off the sidewalk, and they were completely singed and melted. And he said he had passed that spot so many times and never noticed them until he looked up. So it was a really, 84 years later, we still don't know what started this fire, but it was a really devastating fire, and it definitely changed New York City for a long time. Thanks for watching.
And now, for one of our history's most memorable moments.
Ever.
So memorable that Leonardo DiCaprio decided to take part in the reenactment. He's so hot.
He's so hot.
Just amazing.
Yes.
The
Now,
Titanic.
to our story, the Titanic. Thank you, Barb.
We all know the story about the sinking of the Titanic, but do we know all the facts? I'm Dottie Angelo, and here's the investigation of the sinking of the Titanic. Passengers boarded the Titanic on April 10, 1912. The ship consisted of first class, second class, and third class, where first class would pay as much as $4,350 for one parlor suite. Titanic struck an iceberg on 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, and sunk at 2:20 a.m. the next day. It took just under 3 hours for the whole ship to sink to the bottom of the Atlantic. After the ship hit the iceberg, Captain Smith gave the order to lower the lifeboats and to save women and children. But there was a problem. The ship was loaded with only enough lifeboats to hold half the Titanic's passengers. There were 20 of them with a total capacity of 1,178 people. There was another problem. While the order was to save women and children, a large number of men survived. The largest amount of survivors came from first class. The amount of people that died from first class were only 130, while from second class was 166, and from third class a whopping 536. But the largest amount of casualties came from the crew members, which was 685. There seems to be discrepancies on the total amount of people that died that night, but with 2,228 people aboard, only 705 survived, giving the total number 1,523 fatalities.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
It's such a good movie.
It's a quality movie.
I always watch it when it's on TV.
always cry.
always.
Sing. And the music.
It's amazing.
Did you hear that? My dog. I better go feed her. So.
Yes.
I have to go.
History project for Miss Johnson.
Thank you.